Hi.
Hi.
You ready to do this?
Let's do it.
Okay, we're talking about the book, The Marriage Mentor, Becoming the Couple You Long to Be. And we are on chapter 6. That's like halfway, babe. You're doing good.
I don't know.
If you haven't watched any of these videos, this is the first one that you're catching. You missed in the beginning of the first video him talking about how much he doesn't like to be on camera. How much he would prefer to be working out in the heat of 102 temperature right now in California, rather than doing this. And it's crazy because he preaches, he gets up on stage and talks all the time, and they actually video your messages, but this is different.
Not the same.
So he's being a good sport because he cares about you. And he knows this matters. Yeah, you.
I'm not too sure about you.
So today's chapter is called Telling Her She's Pretty and Keeping His Attention.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to start? What's this chapter about?
Now, do you think I'm sexy? Come on, baby, let me know.
That's a good song. Exactly. His 80s are showing. Or was that 70s? That might be the 70s.
I don't even know. I wasn't here for that. I just heard the repeat.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a huge part of life, right? Is letting your wife know that she's pretty. And for some of you guys, I'll talk to you guys because you girls, you love this, and this is what you want to hear all the time. And some of you guys might be thinking, it's a little superficial, it's a little silly, it's a little worldly to care about your looks and to have to think you're being told you're pretty and all this sort of thing. And I'm sure there's some spiritual ramifications in there, and I get that. But I still think it's important for you to be able to tell your wife she's pretty. Now, those words to me are a little bit tough. I'd rather say, baby, you're hot. For some reason, it doesn't carry the same sense to her that I've really given her a...
Because baby, you're hot is more like, hey, I want to take you to bed.
Exactly.
Then you're attractive to me and I admire your beauty.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah. Thanks for the clarification. I just think she's hot. So anyway, so you might think, okay, this is kind of in an area. And granted, we live in a world that your beauty determines your value. Right? I mean, and it's not just in America. It's not just our culture. It's all over the world. I mean, why do you think porn takes off so well and does so well? And they never have, ugly women on those things. They always have these beauties that are supposed to draw you in and all that sort of thing. It's just beauty sells and the sex sells. And I mean, your little girls, when they get dressed, some of you guys, if you're like me, kind of like the first time one of my little girls put on a bikini, I kind of went, oh no, you don't. Why? Because we know what men are thinking, right? We know when the little boys see them, they're not thinking, oh, how pretty she is. No. And in fact, we had a hard time with that even with my wife when she was young. I won't tell you what she'd come out in, but she came out in some things that were...
Totes and approps.
Yeah.
I was naive. And it was the 70s.
And it was the 70s. And she'd come out and I go, we're going to go out in that? And she said, yeah, what's wrong with it? I said, well, the guys are going to be all over you. And she just didn't understand it. Well, it's cute. It's this, it's that, the other thing. The problem is you don't really realize how that plays on a boy's mind. And she didn't. And it wasn't, she tells you, I think she said in the book, don't you? She didn't really figure that out till after we had our own son. And then she goes, oh, I see how men think now. It's like, hello.
I've been telling you.
But nonetheless, that's just a huge thing in life is beauty, and your little girls are going to want to aspire to that, and because they're going to find their worth and their value in that. And you need to circumvent that a little bit. I know this goes a little bit away from the chapter, but I want to set up this premise because you can circumvent that a little bit and share with them how well it's nice to look nice. It's fine to be pretty and all those sorts of things. you find that inner beauty, and you only find it when you're in Christ, and that's where you go to find that value and that support. And so it really is, it's a spiritual issue. It's not just a physical outward appearance issue. It's really more of a spiritual issue, how you're teaching your children how they should look, and how you're teaching your boys how you should look at women. You don't teach your boys to, peer at every hot thing that walks down the street, scantily clad. I mean, and you don't have to sit there and berate it and say, oh, what a hooker she is, or whatever you might want to add. But you might say, you know what, that doesn't bring glory to the God that we serve, does it? You might just kind of teach them in that area of what are we supposed to look at, or what are we supposed to be thinking when we see something like that. Because the reality is, you're not going to keep them from seeing stuff. It's out there. So you're teaching them as well. You're teaching your girls. Now, having kind of set that as a parameter, we can go more into that later if you want. But as you kind of set that up, that's what the world views as valuable. That's what the world views as good. And you're countering that. Now, your wife still wants to be looked at and thought of as pretty. So you say, well, now you're just playing into the world's effect of it. Well, you can go ahead and use that if you want, but I think it's not going to get you very far, and it'll probably work against you in the long run. Affirm your wife. Let her know she's pretty. Sometimes, I've been married
It'll be 37 years in October.
Okay, 36 for now, don't maybe that old. So 36 years as of now. And every once in a while she still has to kind of correct me.
Ask you.
Ask me. It's kind of correcting, but asking. Can you tell me I'm pretty once in a while?
Which is super awkward and vulnerable to have to say those words, honestly. And yet, if I don't ask him, I start lighting my hair on fire trying to get his attention, and that's, you never know what color my hair's going to be, or more makeup, what do I need to do to get your attention? When it's in reality, what is your response? I think you're pretty. If you're not, I'll let you know.
Well, it's kind of like, when you get married, you say, baby, I love you, and, if I ever change my mind, I'll let you know. No, they like to hear it now and again. Yes. And so it's a wonderful thing to kind of keep that in mind. So in a way, men, we were talking about, and I'll let Rhonda say what she needs to say, but I think, men, if you just kind of look at it this way, you're still serving your wife, like what we said from the previous chapters. Your marriage is about you serving your wife, and this is one of the areas where you can serve her. And whether you think it's superficial, whether you think it's kind of silly, it really doesn't matter. If it's what she needs, it's what you do to serve her. And it doesn't mean she's worldly. It doesn't mean she's looking to her looks to get her approval, and she's just trying to feel good as a woman and be desirous and desired by you. So that should be a good thing, and be thankful that she's still doing that.
Yeah.
Because she could just go, you know what, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I don't even care what you think.
Yeah.
So kind of give her that.
And I think that's true. It's like, it's easy to give up. If your husband, you don't think he's paying attention, you don't think he cares at all.
Start dressing for others.
Either start dressing for others to get their affirmation, which a lot of women, we dress for our girlfriends to say, oh, I love that, where'd you get it? Which I'm always the deal person. It's like, it was $8 and I'm happy.
Just between you, I haven't bought into that whole idea yet. I know
But we do. We love, we just love that. But to be affirmed by my husband, we wanted that when we were dating, and we still want it. How old am I? I'm 57 years old. Yeah, and I am actually needing it more at this season of my life than I did, maybe a decade ago.
Aren't you?
No. But it's a part of us that's just kind of needy. And then I think I do tell the story in the Marriage Mentor. I remember when we had our first child, and I went from corporate America, I became a stay-at-home mom. So, when you're working every day, you're getting dressed up, you feel pretty confident about what you're wearing, you do your hair, you do your makeup, and all of a sudden you're a stay-at-home mom and you got barf down your back, and, you're in the same sweatpants that you've been in.
I have it too.
Yeah. And your husband comes home every day and you kind of feel frumpy. And I remember going through that. You got to lose the weight that you had put on when you had the baby or not. And I remember there was a certain man at church that had told me I looked pretty one Sunday. And then the next Sunday, he told me I looked pretty. And I wasn't at all attracted to this man, not at all. And this man wasn't even being really inappropriate that he had said I looked pretty. But I remember getting ready on the morning of the third Sunday, and I thought, oh, I hope so-and-so says I'm pretty today. And I stopped, and it scared me, and I went and told him, hey, this just crossed my mind. And he said, are you attracted to so-and-so? I said, actually, I'm not at all. It just concerns me that all of a sudden it matters that he might tell me I'm pretty, because I'm not hearing it from you as much as I'm needing it at this time, and I'm not going out into the world even, looking the way I did before I had kids. But again, we talked about husbands dwell with your wives according to knowledge. They don't know what we need unless we tell them. And a lot of times, wives play that game. Well, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you. And husbands don't know. And if we don't tell them in a kind way, and husbands get this, if your wife comes to you and says, hey, can you tell me I'm pretty? That's an embarrassing, I think, I'm even feeling embarrassed talking about it on camera, needy thing to say for a wife. But in reality, if she's gotten the courage to say, hey, I really need to hear that from you, don't just ignore it or don't just forget, because I think it's easy to forget. Can you say something?
Yeah, no, well, I just, again, I know we're not chastising you men. It's because this is an important issue, even though it seems kind of silly, and we don't need it in the same way, right? I mean, you can tell I'm not, I'm not aspiring to get my value from my looks.
Oh yeah, you are, baby.
Yeah, well, back in the day, I was something, but now it's a little bit different. But we don't need that so much. But the women, they do, and so what she's talking about is important for us to look at in the right perspective. It's what they need. It's what can bolster them up. It's what could really spark even more love between you, and more feelings of even intimacy and emotion and just desire and security for one another. And so you do it out of love. You do it out of service for the woman that you love.
And kindness. It's really an act of kindness. Yeah. And we'll talk in chapter 7 about all he wants is sex when you long for romance, or I don't know if that's the title. They might have changed the title. But even in that, if I don't feel that my husband finds me attractive outside of the marriage bed, it's kind of hard to fully engage in wanting to be seen in a way that your most vulnerable state. What I loved about chapter 6 in the book For Women Only by Shanti Feldhahn. She is a social researcher, and she wrote a really good book, and it's just interviewing thousands of men anonymously what they wish their wives knew. And here's one of the quotes from the book. It says, in a way, this issue for men is like romance. I'm sorry, let me say it again. In a way, this issue for men is like the romance issue for us. Maybe it shouldn't matter whether our husbands ever put one jot of effort into romancing us, but it does. We love him regardless, but it doesn't salve the empty wistfulness we feel or the pain we may suffer wondering why on earth our man doesn't see that it's so important to us. Guys feel the same way on the issue of our appearance, or at least our effort. It is critical that we acknowledge that this male desire is both real and legitimate. Another man said, I want to be proud of my wife. Every man has this innate competition with other men, and our wives are part of that. Every man wants other men to think he did well. Now hold on before you translate the comments to those men that mean that they want you to be skinny and look great in a bikini. That's not at all what they're saying. The majority of men said, sometimes I'll meet a man whose wife is overweight, but she takes care of herself. She puts effort into her appearance. She dresses neatly and does her makeup or her hair. She is comfortable in her own skin and is confident. You don't notice the extra pounds. It doesn't even matter. I look at that husband and I think he did well. I love knowing that insight, that it's kind of a way of respecting your husband by putting forth the effort to look good, not just when you go out. I can remember one day I looked in the mirror. He and I, our date time is in the morning because he comes home late at night a lot. So when we're alone in the morning having coffee together, that's our time. And I remember I went and looked in the mirror one morning, and I had like no makeup on and dark circles like raccoon eyes. And I thought, I wouldn't even go to the grocery store like this. Why am I sitting across from him having coffee and not making any effort? So I at least try to put on some foundation and not look quite so tired. And then there's another story at the very beginning of chapter 6 that I just love. It's about George Mueller. And it's talking about Mueller when he came to Christ, and his biography is wonderful. He met this beautiful woman named Ermengarde at a Bible study. He loved her beauty, and he fell in love with her, and he was going to ask her to marry him. And one day when he told her that God had impressed on his heart to be a missionary, she told him, no, don't be a missionary. I don't want to be married to a missionary. They're poor. Let someone else do that. I want you to be a doctor or a lawyer or something important. And it broke Mueller's heart because he really loved this woman, or thought he did. So he had to make a decision. Am I going to follow what I believe God's leading me to? Or I'm going to not follow it so I can have this, trophy wife on my arm, basically. So he broke it off with her, and he thought he would never get married, that he just needed to pursue serving God. And anyone who knows Mueller's story knows that that's exactly what he did. But he met a woman named Mary. And what he said about Mary at one point was she wasn't attractive. In fact, she had the largest nose of any person he'd ever met, man or woman. But he fell in love with her heart, with her love for the Lord, and with her love for him and love for ministry. And their whole story is just absolutely beautiful. When Mary Mueller died, George preached a short message at her funeral, and he quoted Psalm 119:68. Thou art good and dost good. The funeral service was one of the largest Bristol had ever seen. Thousands of letters poured in from orphans whom Mary had nurtured as children. George was comforted by these letters, but he missed Mary greatly. Though she may not have been pretty by the world standard, George knew that his wife was one of the most beautiful women this world had ever known. In her, he had found a good thing. And I love that story because I think that's genuine, true beauty that is reflected in that story. You agree with that?
Yeah, I think the only problem I have with him is he made the statement that she had this big nose.
Oh, you talk about Mueller? Yeah, I know. It's like she's like great.
I can just see that. Yeah, my wife's beautiful with this huge snot.
Mary Mueller goes down in history as the kind woman who took care of orphans, and she had big nose.
So men don't do that in this.
Yeah.
In this little thing, don't point out her big nose, big ears, or whatever it might be. That one tooth. That anyway, that's. I just lost my whole train of thought.
Yes. Okay, I'll read the last part of this that I wrote to the husbands. Okay, I get it. I'm needy. After I read over Steve's section to the husbands, I realized how needy I might sound to you since I asked Steve to tell me that I'm pretty. Call it what you will, but I look at it more like I'm being honest and vulnerable with him about my need to believe he still finds me attractive after 36 years of marriage. The way I see it, the Bible calls husbands to live with their wives in an understanding way, but how is my husband ever going to understand how much I need to hear his affirming words if I don't tell him? So, guys, you girls need to hear it. So, even though you may think, it's...
Over and over and over and over again.
Throw us a bone, guys.
And don't be surprised that you're going to have to remind him over and over and over and over again.
And don't get mad or give him the silent treatment when you have to. Guys are very compartmentalized in what they're doing and how they're focused and what they're thinking on.
Yeah. When she gets ugly, I'll start telling her.
Thanks.
Sure.
The Marriage Mentor. Stay with us for chapter 7, which is all, let me think, I'll get the exact title.
Don't tell him.
No, it's a good one. All he wants is sex. The guys are going to watch this one. They're going to watch this one. Chapter 7 coming up.